I let this thing sit overnight. This is part 2 oil pump. I took the oil pan out. So I'm gonna pop in I would like to always put brand new parts on stuff, but I've got a plethora of brand used parts. Very nice, perfectly working used parts. This is a 240,000 mile engine. I don't really need to explain myself, but I'm helping a friend out and it's not worth sometimes always putting brand new parts on. If you go buy a car, how many parts, like a used car, how many parts on it are gonna be brand new? Used is used, new is new. If you want new, go to the dealership, buy a new car, get a warranty. But I don't care. I don't care what you do. Yeah, I like new parts just as much as the next guy. We're not all made of money, but I trust OEM used parts more than I trust brand new China parts. I'll tell you that. Anytime you have a no name, no brand part, I don't trust it. So what I'm gonna do is, like I said, I let this thing sit overnight because you see how the oil just keeps on dripping and dripping and dripping, and then whenever you have fresh silicone on your brand new clean oil pan, you try to put it up there and it gets contaminated with the used oil. So when you let it sit overnight like this, it gets pretty much all of its drips out of its system. And now I'm doing pretty much the final cleaning. I mean, I'll touch it up one more time before I put the pan up in there. But now I would not want to hit it with the brake clean up here like this, like I did last time, because that would just make more drainage issues. That would just break up more used oil and I would just be fighting even more drips. So I'm just spraying it on the rag and then a lint-free rag. Like I say, I might not cover every single little detail, so you might want to watch part 1, but you pretty much can get everything covered right here in part 2. One of the things I mentioned was there's a little oil filter screen in here that was missing, and I've never really seen it to be an issue, but I would always suggest everyone to put it back in. Don't let it fall out. Don't forget about it. It's a nice little, I mean, there's a reason why they put it in there. Some of the screens, only one particular screen I pop out, and it's in the cam bridge. But, you know, some of the screens aren't so popular. I've popped out screens in balance shaft assemblies before because those can seize. They can cause you problems with the balance shaft assembly, but I've only tried that once. And as far as I know, it's good to this day. So, but this screen right here, I would always use. Now, let's get the clean used oil pump. So I don't have an extra one of those screens, just so you know. It didn't come on the old pump whenever I took this apart, so I'm not going to take the time to source one. You want to make sure that there's the dowels in there, and if they're not, it's probably not that big of a deal, but it's nice to have the dowels in there. Just pay attention because these little plastic pieces can come out. So you've got one long bolt and 2 of the shorter bolts. These are the oil pump bolts. How we put this up in here is this chain right here is spring tensioned, but really you can just kind of stick it up in there like this and let it hang. Then you can just bolt it up. If my air compressor would shut off. Now this long bolt here goes in this front corner. There we go, it finally shut off. Did you hear the dowel pins kind of pop into place? Now I'm not getting it all the way tight yet. On this one, I'm using quarter drive, so I can cinch it up and then I can ratchet it in just a little bit. There's no gasket or anything on the oil pump, it just sits like that. Then we have our oil baffle, right? I put this in a clean spot. You don't want it to collect dust or anything. And we'll just carefully, see, this is even kind of oily. And if you prefer, you know, you can put it in the parts washer or clean it all the way up. That's perfectly fine. If you'd like to do that, go right ahead. Now, gotta find my bolts here. These take slightly longer black bolts and toss them in the T30. Get one of them all the way in, and then I can get the two tricky ones in. Now, see, if you wanted to get an easier way to get to those bolts, you could take these 13 millimeters out, and this sway bar will just roll down a little bit. So that could save you some hassle. I'm pretty sure I've got, let me go in that, I got a tool somewhere else. You've seen this on my 8-minute intake manifold removal video. Long hex bit extension. So yeah, it does come in handy. I've got a tool bag with all my specialty stuff in it. I at some point need to get double everything so I don't have to constantly be moving the tool bag back and forth. But with this here, we can just toss the bolt on, stick it up there, and look at how much easier that one is than what I was doing last time. And one more somewhat difficult bolt up in here, and we'll try to toss it right up in there. Yep, money. Well, I thought it was. Yeah, it was going in. All right. Now, I'm gonna spray this lint-free cloth one more time. If you don't know how I clean my pans, search Naptown Tuner leak-proof lower timing case cover. If you can't find it, let me know and I'll pin it in the comments. But I clean my oil pan with a grinder, and the grinder puts a coarse action on that gasket surface, and that really helps the silicone sealant to stick into it more. It helps the adhesion. So that's my best method so far of not having any leaks, because whenever everything's super smooth, you can have a tendency of the sealant just spreading all the way out and pushing out, and then the oil follows it. So it's much easier to score up the pans than it is to mess with scoring up this aluminum. This I guess you would call this a pan as well, but this is the upper oil. It's really a crank scraper, this upper oil pan. But so we're ready for the oil pan now. I just need to put my sealant on it, and I guess I'll come down here and I'll go ahead and bust open a new package of sealant. We have high flexibility oil resistant. It's not the cheapest stuff you can get. And then, if you didn't know, you just flip the cap upside down That's how you open it. And then I don't ever mess with the little end cap, the little pointy cap. Nah, I just take it straight like this. Get me a nice bead all the way around. We ain't got all day. We're getting it done. Now for good measure, once you're done with that, of course you want to put the cap back on whatever sealant you got left. I just really like the consistency of this. Some of the stuff, I threw away the 1 minute sealer. I hate that stuff. The 1 minute gasket maker, man, it's just crummy. This is what you want. And I just kind of roll it on both ways, and I make a crown in the middle of the gasket, the Permatex. I kind of push the hump in the middle, but I spread it out evenly as well. This just verifies that the whole thing is covered, because I have put pans on before and it's leaked out of one little spot. So it's, in my opinion, it's not a good idea just to lay a bead and let the pan spread it out. I like to spread it out by hand. And then whatever's excess, just get rid of it. Now we're ready, but before I just toss it up there, I want to have at least a couple bolts ready to follow it up. So I'm gonna get 3 bolts in my hand, and I've just got an extension socket. Now this is the part where it's really important to keep your hoses out of the way. And look, I've even got one more little tiny drip out in that corner. So it's still dripping. I guess I gotta show you. There's one drip in this corner here, and I've still got a little bit of brake clean on my fresh lint-free rag. So we're gonna wipe that off, and then the rest of it looks perfectly clean and dry. So I'm also gonna wipe off this area a little bit just to make sure I don't drag it across the pan. Now this part is pretty tricky. Because you don't want to scrape your silicone off. So you just, see that? Look, I was looking at one side and I tapped my hose. So now I got to come back up here and make sure that my gasket, my Permatex, is still all the way covering everything, because I just barely tapped it. So let's try this one more time. Yeah. This corner right there, I could probably jack the engine up just a little bit more. And like I said last time, you could, I should have enough. It's like playing Operation. Ow! That bungee cord smacked me right in the face. All right, that's good enough. Just wiggle the pan around just a little bit. All right, we'll get one in this corner over here. All right, now I'm gonna get one more. Kind of trying to evenly space them out just a little bit. I mean, I got 2 right next to each other right there and one over here, but Try to space them out a little bit when you first get it set. But I know enough to where all these bolts will line up. All right, this one in the corner here is a VIM stubby. I heard it get tight, but just for good measure, we've got our low profile ratchet, and we can follow that up. Yep, perfectly tight. We're gonna keep that handy. Check it out. I've even got a vintage snap-on ratchet with a hex insert. Just double checking all these torques. No pun intended. Now you hear those pop noises? This pan has likely been off a couple times, and I've addressed this before. There's silicone up there in that pan in those bolt holes, and it's not gonna cause a problem, but it's popping out the tip of the pan. The aluminum is breaking a little bit, but it's happened to me hundreds of times. It's not, like I said, it's not gonna cause a problem. If you want to, you can spend the time to run a tap in there, run a pick in there, clean it out with a water jet, whatever you do. I don't care. All right, we already got another. So I'm just speeding things up by going just a little bit crooked, but you really got to get up in there with an actual ratchet. All right, I need a little extension on this ratchet. This is a little bit helpful. This is a 3/8 mini wobble. Sometimes it gives you just enough. So you can go in there and how many more can I get like this? I think that's without the wobble, maybe. I might even have to move to my long neck quarter drive. Yep. can have these tools right in front of me, yet they're all over the place. All right, that's still a little bit too long. What I'd like to do is start it by hand. All right. And then maybe I can get in there a little bit better. And we got this one in the back corner. I'm going to start it by hand, and now I'm going to get it just a little bit crooked. And then I'm going to follow it up with my stubby ratchet. All right, now we're just left with the 1, 2, 3 somewhat difficult ones. So this one in the middle is easy. The hardest part is just getting it started straight. And a lot of that is recognizing the angle that the engine is sitting at. There we go. Now we got 2 more. So let's see if we can remember how we got these. What I'd like to do is I'd like to start them by hand. So I'm gonna stick this bolt up in here. And this is just too much going on to get you right in here with the camera. I mean, I'm giving you a little bit of commentary and I'm showing you kind of what tools I'm using. Is that not good enough? You gotta have every little detail. All right, so I got that one started, and then hopefully I can, I'd prefer if I could. All right, we're screwing it in just a little bit more by hand. The more I can get it in, the less time it takes to fool around with this thing. Come on now. Nope. So this one's taking some time, and I'm sure this other one's gonna take a little bit of time too. But there we go, it's tight. So with this, you just have to stick it up there on, once you get it started by hand, you stick it up there and then you put your thumb on this to hold it on the back side of it. This is actually a stubby T30 as well, by the way. You have to get that specifically from a VIM kit or from your tool guy. Now, there's one more up there. It's just tucked way in there, and gotta find the last bolt. Here it is. And this one is gonna be the hardest. You know, we can just leave this out. One bolt won't hurt. No, I'm gonna put it in. I'm gonna put it in. It's tricky. It's a tricky one. Like I said, you can take that loose. I don't think this will. See, once I got it started, I could put it in just a hair crooked. Not crooked, but this bit is a little bit crooked. The bolt went in perfectly straight. So now we're cruising. We just gotta get our, let's get this bungee cord out of the way. It smacked me in the face earlier. Gotta get our 10mm and this particular time I didn't organize my bolts like I've showed you before. I used bolt trays and I put my hardware in order, but last night I was just trying to get stuff done. But today it's making me spend extra time. So instead of that 10mm, I'm just gonna put another T30 in here. Dropped it. So I got it like this, and then I can just get these transmission lines together. Whenever I was doing all these piston jobs, I used to always put this bolt back in here on this other 10mm, but nobody, and I mean nobody else did it. And that was whenever we first started. I started doing all the piston jobs after about the first 6 months. I was assigned to all of them, but it's gonna be fine with just this front bolt in, as long as this front bolt's not stripped out. I know there's some people that don't like when I tell them shortcuts like that, and they want every little thing back in the way it's supposed to be, but I'm telling you all this stuff now, so at least you know what to look out for, and so be grateful for that. So now we have the oil pressure sender, and we're gonna clean it up just a little bit, but not with water, you know. But with the magic of camera editing, I've got a pretty much clean one ready to go right here. And then I've got my 10mm nuts. I'm gonna make sure that this washer's in here. This, not really a washer, but it's an O-ring. And then just pop it up in here. Remember, it does not go like this. It goes like this, even though it looks like it would go like this. So we'll get these started. Actually, just one's good enough. I knew someone that I worked with that tightened these 10mm down so tight that they broke the studs off the oil pan. Don't be like that. Don't be that guy. I've never done that. All right. We're gonna toss our sensor in. Now, look, the oil pan is done. The oil pump is installed. Now I just gotta pour oil in it and take the brace off the top. Do you wanna see the brace? I did have the Harbor Freight engine support bar, but this support bar was a relatively inexpensive one that allows you to put a third arm on it. So the third arm can go through like this on the bottom, and we'll show you that on a different video when I need it. It's not necessarily the strongest bar. You see it flex in here. And then this bolt situation is pretty out of hand, long-winded, but it works for its intended purpose, so I ain't complaining too much. Let's see if this... Nope, that's not working. You pretty much got to take this nut all the way off to get this hook unhooked. That's one of my pet peeves on this thing. You see how long this... I need to make a big wing nut, but we'll get to that whenever I start using this thing a lot more. And I dropped my washer, but I'll get down there and get it. All right. Now I still gotta replace this cover. I showed you this is the same car that had the cover that has the oil leak, so go check out that video. And then we'll dump oil in it and see if it works. I smacked my head with a pry bar the other day. Anyway, knocked some sense into me or out of me, one or the other. We got the oil pressure situation all straightened out on this Q5. It does have close to 240,000 miles on it though, so ultimately, if it was mine, if I was doing stuff for myself, I would probably just pull the engine out and go all the way through it, but it kind of scares me to do something like that with someone else's vehicle because I'm not working with my own money. So I can't fix things to the extent of how I would like to whenever it's someone else's. So you always have to keep that in mind. Of course, they would always like to repair and replace everything and put all the brand new parts on it, put a brand new engine in it if you could, but we're not all made of money. So we got it skating by. Hopefully it's gonna last, but we got one more issue going on with this thing, and stay tuned for more content. We'll figure out what these high mile 2.0T platforms are doing to us.